In Hollywood, some actors didn't just play tough, they lived it. Their scars were real, their battles were real, and the steel in their eyes came from surviving hardships most men couldn't imagine. No scripts, no gym-built muscles, no fake bravado, just raw courage forged in streets, war zones, and prison yards. Today, we honor the 10 toughest legends in Hollywood history, men who didn't act fearless, they were fearless. Robert Mitchum. Before Hollywood ever lit his face with stardom, Robert Mitchum was already living a life most men wouldn't survive. At 16, while other boys were sitting in classrooms, Mitchum was breaking rocks in a Georgia chain gang prison, not because of some dramatic movie plot, but because that was the price of being a runaway kid with nowhere to go. He rode freight trains across America during the Great Depression, sleeping under bridges, fighting grown men for food, and learning fast that the world doesn't care about the weak. He dug ditches hauled coal-boxed under fake names for a couple of dollars and a hot meal. That sleepy-eyed, don't-care stare people later worshipped on screen, that wasn't acting. That was a man who had already seen hunger fists and steel bars. When Hollywood finally did find him, Mitchum didn't soften. He smoked, he shrugged. He moved like a man who'd already lived 10 lives. In 1948, he got arrested for marijuana, a career killer in that era. But Mitchum didn't beg, didn't panic. He did his 60-day sentence, walked out, and came back bigger than before. Scandal couldn't touch him, because you can't ruin a man who never pretended to be perfect. Ask anyone who worked with him, Mitchum didn't talk tough. He didn't need to. His presence said everything you don't mess with a man who learned life the hard way and never once flinched. Have you ever met Robert Mitchum in real life? Let us know in the comments section below. Charles Bronson. Before Charles Bronson ever held a gun on camera, he held a pickaxe underground. Born into a family so poor they shared hand-me-down clothes among 15 children, Bronson was working in the coal mines by age 10, not learning lines, but breathing dust and swinging iron hundreds of feet below the earth. Down there, boys didn't grow up. They hardened. When Wadibabu II called, he traded darkness underground for fire in the skies, serving as a B-29 tail gunner flying deadly missions over Japan. He earned a Purple Heart when enemy fire ripped through his aircraft, and when he came home, he didn't boast. He simply got back to work, any work, dishwasher, onion picker, short-order cook. Conquests weren't trophies to him, they were survival. Hollywood didn't shape Bronson, it found him already forged. On set, he didn't roar, didn't grandstand, didn't pretend. His power wasn't in volume, it was in presence. His co-stars said one rough pull from Bronson felt like being caught in an engine block. His punches looked real because they were. Precision, efficiency, finality. The instincts of a man who learned early that in real fights, you don't waste movement. When Death Wish stirred up threats from real-life criminals, the studio offered security. Bronson just smirked. I've lived too long, seen too much to be scared. You couldn't frighten a man who'd already faced hunger war and the earth trying to swallow him. Charles Bronson didn't act tough. He carried toughness like coal dust on skin, permanent, earned, undeniable. He wasn't Hollywood's strongman. He was the blueprint. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen was not born legendary. Life hammered him into steel. Before Hollywood ever saw him, he was a runaway kid surviving abuse, reform schools, and street fights. Chaos was his classroom danger, his only comfort. At 14, he jumped trains and lived anywhere he could. When he joined the Marines, discipline did not tame him. He landed in the brig again and again for refusing to bow to authority. But when real danger hit, he showed what kind of man he truly was. During Arctic training, he saved 5 Marines from drowning in a sinking tank, risking his life without hesitation. Once Hollywood arrived, McQueen did not soften. He burned brighter. He raced motorcycles and cars for real, entering competitions under fake names so studios could not stop him. On film sets, he did nearly every stunt himself. On The Great Escape, producers had to physically prevent him from doing the famous fence jump. On the sand pebbles, he nearly drowned filming a river scene. Fire speed impact. He chased it, lived it, needed it. When he learned Charles Manson targeted him, McQueen did not hire bodyguards or panic. He simply carried a loaded pistol everywhere. Not because he wanted trouble, but because he understood danger better than anyone in Hollywood ever could. Steve McQueen never acted fearless. He simply lived without fear, a man driven by instinct, adrenaline, and a refusal to ever be anything less than real. A rebel, a fighter, a force who lived life like a roaring engine and never once tapped the brakes. Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin didn't learn toughness in Hollywood. He earned it on real battlefields. Before he ever faced a camera, he was a Marine fighting through the bloodiest Pacific campaigns of World War II. On Saipan, enemy bullets tore through his back and nearly killed him, severing his sciatic nerve and leaving him with a limp he quietly hid for decades. That wasn't a performance, that was a war wound carried into every scene. His danger on screen wasn't acting. It was memory. Marvin moved like someone who had seen real combat, fast, efficient, deadly. No wasted motion, no theatrics. He understood violence because he had lived it and survived it. Off-screen, the toughness never faded. During filming in Oregon, he got into a bar fight with multiple loggers and stood his ground. The next morning, he showed up to set bruised but unbothered, refusing to slow down or complain. Directors didn't try to mold him. They simply let the camera roll. Castmates said you always felt something raw around Marvin, a quiet intensity that didn't need volume or threats. Lee Marvin wasn't Hollywood's idea of a tough guy. He was the real thing, a wounded Marine who brought battlefield calm, survivor strength, and unshakable presence to the screen. A man who never bragged, never backed down, and carried the weight of war behind every steady, unflinching stare. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas wasn't born into strength. He built it with his bare hands. Raised in crushing poverty by immigrant parents, he grew up fighting for every scrap of survival. School wasn't where he learned to endure. Hard labor and hunger taught him first. Wrestling became his ticket out, earning him a scholarship, not through privilege but grit and bruises. When World War II erupted, he didn't hide behind stardom or comfort. He served in the U.S. Navy aboard submarine chasers, facing the threat of torpedoes and open ocean combat. An injury forced him out, but it never slowed him. He stepped into Hollywood with the same relentless spirit, refusing stunt doubles and training like a real warrior for roles like Spartacus. If a scene demanded pain, Douglas met it head-on. His toughest battles came long after youth. At 72, he survived a helicopter crash that killed 2 others. Most men his age would never walk again. Douglas fought back. Then came a massive stroke that stole his speech. Doctors doubted he'd talk again. He trained, he struggled, he returned and eventually spoke publicly once more. Kirk Douglas didn't just play heroes, he lived like one. Every setback met with fire, every challenge answered with will. A jaw set for battle, a heart wired for resilience, and a life defined by refusal to surrender. In a world full of tough guy performances, Douglas stood apart because his toughness wasn't crafted for cameras. It was earned in life, proven in pain, and carried with pride to the very end. Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn didn't become strong in a gym or drama school. Life sculpted him long before Hollywood ever tried. Born in the fire of the Mexican Revolution, he spent his childhood dodging chaos, not chasing dreams. When his family fled to the United States, Quinn grew up in the rough streets of East Los Angeles, where every day demanded grit, and every dollar was earned the hard way. By 9, he was already working manual jobs, hauling crates, and helping butchers just to keep food on the table. When life got tighter, he put on boxing gloves. Quinn didn't fight for sport. He fought for survival. His broken nose earned in real rings, taking real punches. That raw toughness followed him to film sets. On Zorba the Greek, he carried massive wood beams on the beach, not because it looked good, but because no one else could do it like he could. On the Guns of Navarone at 46, he climbed cliffs and did dangerous scenes himself, waving off stuntmen and insurance worries. But his power wasn't just physical. Quinn could show strength and vulnerability in the same breath. He could rage like a storm or break your heart with a single expression. That emotional depth came from a life lived hard, not a script studied carefully. Anthony Quinn didn't act like a tough man. He was one built by hardship, sharpened by struggle, and remembered for the authenticity he carried into every frame. James Cagney. James Cagney didn't need size to command a room. He had fire. Born on the tough streets of Manhattan's Lower East Side, he grew up where fists did the talking, and only the quick survived. Fighting wasn't a hobby for Cagney. It was childhood. He learned to swing fast, strike hard, and never back down because hesitation meant pain. What made Cagney different wasn't just his toughness, it was the precision behind it. Before Hollywood, he trained as a dancer, sharpening balance, speed, and timing. Combine a street brawler's instinct with a dancer's footwork, and you get something dangerous. His punches on screen snapped like real ones because they were real, sharp, direct, and meant to end things fast. Cagney didn't posture or roar for attention. His power came from silence, from the coiled energy of a man who knew violence firsthand, but didn't need to show off. Bob Hope once joked that Cagney would knock you out, then sit you up and buy you a drink, and that wasn't far from the truth. On screen, he exploded with energy. Off screen, he carried the same edge, always humble, but never someone you pushed. James Cagney proved toughness isn't about size, it's about precision, attitude, and the courage to stand your ground, no matter who's in front of you. John Wayne. John Wayne didn't just play American grit, he defined it. Before the big hats and the slow, steady drawl made him a legend, Wayne was just a college kid hauling props and building sets in early Hollywood, working with his hands long before he ever stood in front of the camera. He earned his toughness without spotlight or applause. Football injuries followed him into acting, but Wayne never let pain slow him. On set, if a horse threw him or a stunt went wrong, he didn't head to a trailer. He wrapped his ribs, took something for the pain, and kept rolling. During the Alamo, he cracked several ribs performing a horse stunt and finished the film anyway. Complaining wasn't in his vocabulary. Then came the battle. No movie script could dramatize better cancer. Doctors removed a lung and several ribs. Anyone else would step away. Wayne returned months later doing action scenes in The Sons of Katie Elder like nothing had happened. But fate wasn't done. While filming The Conqueror near nuclear test sites, Wayne and many crew members were exposed to radiation, a tragic real-life risk that likely contributed to his second cancer. Still he worked. Still he showed up. He once stared down a director offering a stunt double and said, "Either I do my stunts or you get someone else." That wasn't a line. That was who he was. John Wayne wasn't just a cowboy hero on screen. He was a man who faced injury, cancer, danger, and death the same way he faced villains in his films, straight on, steady, and without fear. Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston didn't just look heroic, he lived with the discipline and grit of one. Before he became Moses or Ben-Hur, he served in the United States Army Air Forces during World War II, operating radios and machine guns in freezing skies. Duty came before fame, and hardship sharpened him long before Hollywood lights ever touched his face. On screen, Heston refused shortcuts. In the Ten Commandments, he lifted real stone-weight props over and over, refusing lighter versions. While filming The Greatest Story Ever Told, he tore shoulder ligaments during a stunt, wrapped the injury, and returned to set the same afternoon. He didn't ask for comfort, he asked to finish the job. Then life dealt its harshest blows. After filming The Conqueror near nuclear test sites, many cast and crew, including Heston, developed cancer. Surgeons removed part of his lung, yet he came back performing roles that would exhaust younger, healthier actors. Pain never broke his spirit. Setbacks never stopped his stride. Heston carried a rare kind of toughness, quiet, disciplined, unwavering. He believed audiences deserved authenticity even if it hurt. And that belief made him more than a screen hero. Charlton Heston didn't act strength. He lived it frame by frame until the very end. Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy didn't need Hollywood to look tough. He arrived tougher than anyone. Before cameras ever rolled, he was the most decorated American soldier in history. At 19, he single-handedly held off a German force from a burning tank destroyer, wounded and outnumbered, then led a counterattack when most men would have collapsed. By 21, he had earned every United States Medal for Valor, killed over 240 enemy soldiers, and survived missions few even dared attempt. Yet he wasn't big or loud. Standing just 5'5" with a boyish face, Murphy didn't look dangerous until you understood what he'd lived through. When he came to Hollywood, guards didn't believe this humble young man was the legendary hero from the magazines. Even in his film, To Hell and Back, the studio toned down his real feats because they seemed unbelievable. But the war never left him. He slept with a loaded gun under his pillow and battled nightmares silently. Still, he showed up, worked hard, and carried his scars without seeking pity or applause. Audie Murphy didn't act fearless, he embodied it. Soft-spoken, humble, and forged by real battle, he remains the most authentic, tough man Hollywood ever had. Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo didn't become a tough guy in front of a camera. He became one behind steel bars. Long before he swung machetes on screen, he was fighting to survive inside some of America's harshest prisons. Robbery, drugs, violence. Trejo lived the life most actors only imitate. And inside San Quentin, he wasn't just another inmate. He became the prison's boxing champion, feared and respected not because he acted tough, but because he was tough. Every scar, every stare, every quiet step earned the hard way. But Trejo's greatest strength wasn't brutality, it was transformation. He got sober, found purpose, and dedicated himself to helping others do the same. Fate brought him onto a movie set while supporting another recovering addict. A director saw him and instantly knew this isn't a guy pretending to be dangerous. This is the real deal. From Heat to Machete, Trejo brought raw authenticity to every role. That hard stare wasn't performance, it was memory. But what makes him legendary isn't just survival, it's redemption. He didn't just escape his past. He turned it into a lifeline for others, becoming a mentor, a role model, and proof that even the hardest life can be rewritten. Danny Trejo isn't Hollywood tough. He's real-world tough and real-world rebuilt. Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson didn't grow into toughness, he was born inside it. Raised in a poor mining family as one of 15 children, he didn't have a childhood of play. His childhood was underground, swinging tools in choking coal dust, before most boys learned to shave. Every bruise, every callus, every breath in that mine carved steel into his bones. There was no drama class for Bronson. Life was his training ground. When war called, he didn't hesitate. Bronson became a tail gunner in Wabufhawu, sitting in the most dangerous spot on a B-29 bomber, staring death through glass at 20,000 feet. He survived anti-aircraft fire, oxygen-starving altitudes, and saw friends die in the sky. He earned a Purple Heart and came home quietly, no celebration, no ego, just the will to keep working. Hollywood discovered him late, and he arrived not as a polished star, but as a man already forged. On screen, Bronson didn't shout to dominate a scene. He simply existed, and the room shifted. His power came from silence, the kind only seen in men who know violence for real and don't need to show it off. Gruff, calm, unblinking. He hit like a hammer, spoke like a whisper, and carried the weight of survival in every stare. Threats didn't shake him. Even when criminals targeted him after Death Wish, he laughed off bodyguards. To him, fear was something life had burned out long ago. Charles Bronson didn't perform strength. He embodied it raw, quiet, unbreakable. A storm that didn't roar, it rumbled beneath the surface, waiting for anyone foolish enough to test it. If you love true Hollywood grit and want more untold legends like these, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon, and join us for the next story from the golden age of real toughness.